I'm sorry, Win, to let you know that I have so many mental lapses and forget things. But what he told you is true, and I didn't want to cheat the people by just preaching part of a sermon. I had to get up and finish it up. But I'll tell you, I'm such a good preacher. This happened. I was standing by the door. A lady came by with her little son, and she was just filled to overflowing, she said. I'm just filled to overflowing with that great sermon. And her 12-year-old son said, and I about got my belly full too. So you can tell that I'm a great preacher. Lois and I would like to express thanks to Sally and Rusty and Chris for letting us stay again in their home here close by. The fellows at the preacher's school think that he needs somebody to stay in his home to help, but anyway, it's very, very gracious of them. Last year, he slept on a mattress on the floor to be that gracious to guests. I'm glad they didn't have to do that this time. And we beseech you, brothers, to know them that labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake. 1 Thessalonians 5:12. I think the members of this congregation are doing exactly that toward their elders, and all of us who are visitors feel the same way. I pray God's blessings upon this great church. I believe these elders, Brother Winkler and all those connected, are doing everything they know to make the kingdom grow here and everywhere. And that rubs off on people. We're thankful for what you're doing. As to this subject tonight, I will not be able to give some answers I'd like to know, and I'm not really worried about them. And I'll tell you why as I start into it. First, there are things in the Bible that are way over my head. And I have done nothing by way of secular work since I was 17 years old. That tells you, as old as I am, I've spent a lot of time with that book. But there's still so much there that's over my head. And I'm going to die in that situation. Canst thou by searching find out God? Canst thou know the Almighty to perfection? It is higher than heaven, what canst thou do? It's deeper than Sheol, what canst thou know? Job 11:7 and 8. Oh, the depth of the riches, both the wisdom and the knowledge of God. How unsearchable are His judgments, and His ways past tracking out. Romans 11:33. And I visit with Daniel. He had a vision. What'd you see, Daniel? Saw a two-horned ram. What else? Saw a billy goat. And I saw that billy goat dash into that two-horned ram. What does it all mean? Daniel said, I'm stuck too. I don't know. This is the way he put it in Daniel 8:27, after the vision. I fainted. What? You had a vision and you fainted? Yes. I fainted and was sick certain days. Do some sermons affect you that way? I fainted and was sick certain days. I rose and did the king's business. I wondered at the vision, but nobody understood it. Look at Daniel 8:27. Yeah. That's the way that sermon of the vision affected the man who got it firsthand. Now I think that by hindsight, having the New Testament, you and I are able to look back and know more about it than Daniel did. He put it down as he had it, but he didn't understand it. And it's not only the book of Daniel that there are things that are beyond my head. And of course, there's much in the Revelation that's beyond me. What should be my attitude about it? The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but revealed things unto us and our children forever. Deuteronomy 29:29. Now, Brother Tom Holland, in a few minutes, will show you that the necessary things of the Bible, what we need to go to heaven, is plain and simple, not complicated. I'm thankful he's here to do that job. With all these difficulties we've studied all this week, we need that way to close out the lectureship, because that is a very important Bible teaching also. Some things over our heads, and I believe forever. Someday in heaven I'm going to know more about the revelation than I do now. But at present, I'm not worried. And I believe I should take the attitude of David in one of the shortest Psalms there is, 131. Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor mine eyes lofty. Neither do I exercise myself in great matters, in things above me. I have behaved and quieted myself as a child who's weaned of his mother. I have behaved myself as a weaned child. What is it, David? He said, is much beyond me, but I know God will take care. So I'm like a child who's now been weaned. I'm content, satisfied. Let him work it out. Really, as far as the revelation is concerned, though it's a great and a powerful book, and every time you read it you get a blessing, but thousands of people lived their Christian lives and went home to heaven without ever seeing it. Stephen was one. So you see why I'm not worried about the beast, the 144,000, the 666, really I'm not worried. But yet God wants me to know some things about these, or he wouldn't have put them in the book. Though I cannot comprehend them completely, I can learn something that'll help me to live a better Christian life. Here is wisdom. What is it, John? Said this is wisdom. That's what everybody in this room is interested in. Here is wisdom, Revelation 13:18. What is wisdom? He that has understanding, yes, that's what we want. He that hath understanding, let him count the number of the beast. For it's the number of a man, and the number is 666. What the world is he talking about? All our Bible fits together. And in this, though written 96 A.D., you cannot really understand that until you go back to Daniel again. But that's where the book of Revelation really starts, in picture. So in brief, you go back first to the second chapter of Daniel and read about the four great empires, the head of gold, breast and arms of silver, stomach and thighs brass, the thighs iron, the feet part iron, part clay. All right. At least four empires spoken of there. And I won't take the time to give the dates. They're in the written lesson in the book. The Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Grecian, and then the Roman. Those four great empires. All that now is in the second chapter of Daniel. Then you go to the seventh chapter. Now, what he saw in the eighth chapter we're not going into. But in the seventh chapter, I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. What it looked like, Daniel? A lion. He looked again, another beast. Looked like a bear. A third one looked like a panther or a leopard. And the fourth one, he didn't know what it looked like. It resembled no animal he'd ever seen. Bible scholars call it the nondescript animal. You see some things about it, that wild brute. Iron teeth, 10 horns. Oh, I'd hate to have met that critter. Stamped, trumped, the wild beast, number 4. Well, by using the second chapter, you can easily see then the same outline, the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian, the Grecian, then the Roman. All right, those 4. Now you leave the Old Testament and you come to Revelation. The 13th chapter. What do you see, John, from the Isle of Patmos? I see something coming up out of the sea. The 4 animals? No. What do you see, John? I see one animal. Now, you see, oftentimes New Testament references take over part of Old Testament pictures. Change them some, give us a different picture. Oftentimes that happens. Incidentally, that's one of the things about the virgin mentioned in Isaiah 7:14. All the picture from Isaiah 7:14 doesn't come over in the New Testament. One part does. And so with other Old Testament predictions. Sometimes changes made in God's wisdom. Just as that one from Hosea also. Out of Egypt have I called my son. First it meant 3 million people coming out of Egypt, collectively lumped together as one son. Exodus 4:22. All Israel, one son of God. But God also had a different picture for the New Testament. He was all there all the time, but we didn't know it. But God did. So that's just a sideline for us who are still studying the Bible. Doesn't have a thing to do with this beast. All right, but so in the 7th chapter, he saw 4 animals come up. Now the parallel in Revelation 13, 1 animal, but he's a conglomerate. He's all put together. What was the first animal you saw, Daniel? A lion. Look at the head of this thing coming up out of the sea, a lion's head. What else you see, Daniel? A bear. Look at the feet of that critter coming up out of the bear's feet. The third one you saw, a leopard or panther? Yes. The body of it? Yes. A whole leopard come out of the sea? Yes. What do you see, John? I see an animal that has a lion's head and bear's feet and a leopard's body. But what about that fourth thing that came up out of the sea, Daniel? 10 horns on it, iron teeth, brass nails. John said, I saw that this one animal coming up out of the sea had a lion's head, had bear's feet, had a leopard's body. It not only has 10 horns, like that one back in Daniel, but this critter has 7 heads on it. Oh, it's a gruesome thing, this beast. Well, as you studied then in Daniel 2, the fourth empire, Rome. And to go over the date specifically, 63 B.C., down to 476 A.D., the beginning and the end of the Roman Empire. All right, that then was the fourth animal coming out of the sea. Well, John, what about yours? He said, I have pictured a conglomerate that brings all these empires together, but it doesn't leave Rome out of it. And it even added the gruesome picture of 7 heads on the monster that wasn't in the Old Testament. To see this beast, well, if Daniel's beast turns out to be pagan Rome, then John's beast turns out to be pagan Rome. Well, we've learned what the beast is. Pagan Rome, 63 B.C., 476 A.D. But that's not all. There's another way to learn who this beast is. Here is wisdom. He who has understanding, let him count the number of the beast. First, the number of a man is number 666. Now, we want to hear Tom have plenty of time, so I'm not going on the detail what's in that book. Please buy one. This sermon that I'm preaching is not worth it, but the others in there are. And incidentally, you can get the detail how we can just figure, here is wisdom. Understand it. Count the number of the beast. And now there are many ways that people have tried to count them, and some ridiculous things have come out of it. In fact, a man here in the audience handed me this. Are computers the mark of the beast? If we assign values to each letter of the alphabet, A equals 6, B equals 12, C equals 18, go on through the alphabet, the word computer equals 666. That proves it. Well, that is as silly as that last one in the book. That last one in the book. Now, I don't mean the man is silly that's talked about there, but that's as silly a computation. Those of you who have the book, I mean beyond the last page, just before you close your book out, and look at that 666, and the last one whose name will spell by the number 666. Well, I was embarrassed. And Wendell, he was a Greek student at OCC. Put it on the board one day before I came in and counted them up. And he figures out I couldn't say no. I had to say you're right about it, but I'm giving you an F anyway. That was the mark of the beast on him. But that's the way he had figured out. All right. So there have been hundreds of different ways to figure out 666. But what is right about it? I have given you in that discussion the mighty argument of Alexander Campbell as he stood before a large audience in Cincinnati in public debate with Bishop Purcell, the Roman Catholic Church, and proved before that audience that 666 can only refer in all history to one kingdom, the Latin kingdom. In other words, pagan Rome. And Bishop Purcell couldn't handle it. With all his learning, the might of the Catholic Church back of him, he couldn't handle it. And you'll read a description of it there in the book. All right, I'm through then with the story of the mark of the beast in 666, except I don't really need to be worried about that fella, that critter, that wild brute. Why? 476 was his terminus in history. Roman Empire died out. So I don't need to be worried about him at all. But wait, Book of Revelation doesn't stop at the 13th chapter. You get to the 17th chapter and look, somebody's on the back of that animal. Oh, it's a gaudy woman, clothed in purple and scarlet, and we learn there for the first time, this beast is scarlet colored. 7-headed, 10-horned, scarlet animal. And on his back, a woman so gaudy, scarlet and purple, bedecked with gold, precious stones and pearls, a golden cup of sin in her hand, and she's called the mother of harlots. The rider on the back of this critter. And what else? Now, literally, of course, what I'm going to describe, what we're just repeating from John, couldn't happen. You can't sit down in 3 places. Most people can't. But this woman could. John saw her sitting on the back of this animal. He saw her then as a city, seated on 7 hills. Same mother of harlots, seated on 7 hills. And he saw her seated upon many waters. And John said, I'll tell you what the waters mean. The peoples of the earth. So this woman, as the mother of harlots, as a great city on 7 hills, was going to have control over multitudes of people. Now, I better be scared of her. She's still in existence. The Roman Empire's gone. The beast, 666, that's gone. But that rider on the horse, on the animal's back, that rider's not gone. But really, if I set my course right, I don't need to worry about her either. Anyone that's in it doesn't, if you really think it through. Revelation 18:4. Come out of her, my people, that you fellowship not with her sins, and that you partake not of her plagues. She's going to be utterly destroyed. So if you're in her, come out of her. That's what God tells you. And so I don't need to be worried about the beast. I don't need to be worried about the rider on the beast's back. Here is patience. They that keep the testimony of Jesus and the Word of God. Revelation 14:12. It's that plain and simple. Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have a right to the tree of life and in through the gates in the city of God. That's all I need to worry about. You'll take care of the rest of it. But 144,000 discussed in the 7th chapter and the 14th chapter. Who are these 144,000? Every one of them has a seal. That is, he's branded in his forehead. 14th chapter tells you where the brand is. In his forehead. What that mean? Slave owners oftentimes branded their slaves as cattlemen do cattle. Put the name of the owner in the forehead of the slave. John is using that picture of a slave belonging to his master and branded in the forehead. The name is put there. John says these 144,000 have God's name written in their foreheads. God's property, thank God. You want to be that person, but say the Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't be. That's reserved for just one particular group of people. And nobody else is going to heaven but that particular group of 144,000. Oh, I'm glad that's false doctrine, but let's look into it. They'll be knocking on your door one of these days. They have done it. Be courteous to them. But their doctrine is so foul. Let's look at it. If the 144,000 who are sealed, God's name in their foreheads, if they're the only ones going to heaven, then let's see what heaven's going to be like. First thing, nobody but Israelites. These are all Israelites, John said, the 144,000. If you're taking it literally, that's what it has to be, all Israelites. But look again. Among these 144,000, divided up into 12 tribes, and each tribe has exactly 12,000 in heaven. That begins to look suspicious. Couldn't it be one of those that have a little more than others? Good and righteous Israelite? No, every tribe exactly 12,000. Well, that begins to make it look suspicious if you turn out that way. But look again. Dan is omitted completely. Nobody from the tribe of Dan going to heaven. Well, you say, I thought there were just 12 tribes again. Well, no, they're really 13. Really 13 tribes. When Joseph came to, Ephraim and Manasseh. So they made 13 tribes altogether. But John said 12,000 from each of 12 tribes, but Dan is left out completely. Poor Dan. Nobody from Dan going to heaven. But 12,000 all the rest. That begins to look suspicious. But you're not through yet if you're taking it literally, just what's said there. Then these young men who are studying the Greek will notice that in the 7th chapter, the 144,000 are all men. It's all masculine. 144,000 male Israelites going to heaven. But when you go to the 14th chapter, the first 3 verses, except the last statement, there's been a sex operation. Literally. If you take it literally, they're all ladies now. In the first 3 verses, the 14th chapter, except the last statement of that verse. Now, grammatically, that's it. The Greek grammar, that's it. Now, I don't think John meant it that technically, but I won't go into that. But if you're taking it literally, that's the way it has to turn out, and that's not all. In the last statement in verse 3, they turn into males again. And then in verse 4, 144,000 celibates. Celibates. Male virgins. Men who never marry. 144,000 of them. Well, anyone that can explain all this literally will surely have a lot on his hand, but that's the way it stacks up if you take it literally. But then I ask this. Is it true that just 144,000 go to heaven? Exactly so. if you take it the way John teaches it. That's the number. But that's no specific number. No. How do I know? Let's see if that's right. That doesn't represent a specific number. You notice in the 14th chapter that these 144,000 are said to be bought from the earth. Bought from the earth. Well, who are bought from the earth? Back in the 5th chapter, verse 9, worthy art thou, that Lamb of God, worthy art thou to take the book and open the seals thereof, for thou art slain. And its purchase, what are we talking about? Some people being bought and paid for, to be slaves, to be the property of God, with a seal in their head, yes. Worthy art thou, take the book open, for thou didst purchase to God with thy blood. Exactly 144,000? No. Men of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. Bought and purchased. How? By the blood of the Lamb. They're the ones that make up the 144,000. Yes, the number 144,000 does not represent a specific number going to heaven, but it represents people of all tribes, tongues, and nations going. And then going into the 7th chapter again. Oh, what a picture. How many people you see, John? He said, I can't count them. Can't count them. Innumerable company. What do they look like? They all have white robes on, each one a palm in his hand. And John is on the Isle of Patmos. And when Miss McCord and I were on the Isle of Patmos, we could think about John in his lonely condition there and the visions he saw. And when John was on that island, he heard a voice from heaven. One of the elders in heaven spoke to John on Patmos. Who are these? Look at that. A question coming from heaven to a man on the Isle of Patmos, asking him, who are these people up in heaven? Who are they? And John simply replied, my Lord, thou knowest. And then the elder proceeded to tell him thrilling words. They touched the heart of every person. These are they that have washed their robe, have come through great tribulation. These are they that have come through great troubles, great tribulations, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. Neither shall the sun light on them or any heat. For the Lamb, who is in the midst of the throne, shall feed them, and shall lead them into everlasting waters. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. You've never read more beautiful language. What does it mean? The 144,000 are they that are bought from the earth, purchased. How? With the blood of the Lamb. How many are they? An innumerable company. And God's going to take care of them forever. One more passage before I sit down. I see a man in Mamertine prison on death row. It's in the fall of 67. The death sentence has been fixed for the springtime by Nero, and no other appeals are allowed. So he's getting ready to spend the winter in the prison on death row. 2 Timothy 4, 7 and 8. I've fought a good fight. I've kept the faith. Haven't been a traitor to it. He appointed me as a messenger to bear his name before kings and rulers. I've kept it. I've kept the faith. I've fought a good fight. I've kept the faith. Finished the course. What, Paul? Henceforth there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness. You learn verse 18 is heaven. But to go back now this verse. There's laid up for me a crown of life, which the Lord will give to me at that day, but not to me only, but to all the rest of the 144,000. Just 144,000 going to make it. Paul said, I'm going to be one of them. No, no. No literal number, but take it as he gave it. And that gets us in tonight. Henceforth there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me at that day, but not to me only, but to all them also who love his appearing. That's the 144,000, and you're part of it if you're on that way.